In a crowded grocery store, a manager drops a deaf stocker's phone into a mop bucket and humiliates him. A bakery lead steps in and gets suspended, then quietly helps the teen and sees he carried a written request for accommodation. Small, practical changes follow, restoring dignity without fanfare. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And hey, where are you tuning in from? Leave your country in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories reach. The manager dropped the phone into the yellow mop bucket. Grey water sloshed up, hitting plastic. The cracked case sank under a film of soap. The teen froze, his hand halfway up. Mist over the lettuce kept hissing like nothing happened. Pick up your hands, the manager said. Loud, flat. He grabbed the boy's sleeve, tugging him off the stack of boxes. No phones on my floor. You want to talk, clock out. A couple with a kid slowed by the apples. The boy tapped behind his ear and opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The bakery timer beeped from across the aisle. Lena wiped sugar on her apron and stepped out from behind the case. She took in the bucket, the manager's grip, the boy's open hand. A final warning sat in her file like a brick. Another mark, and she would be out. The smell of bleach was sharp. The boy looked 16, maybe 17. Vest too big. A busted sticker on his name tag. The manager was older, radio on his belt, the little red light blinking. He looked tired and red around the eyes. He looked like payroll and quotas. She did the math fast. Rent, the electric bill, the dented Corolla, the way her kid's backpack already had a tear, the way the overnight person hadn't wrapped the rye right. She could keep walking. It would be easier. The boy blinked water off his lashes and stared at his empty hand. She stepped in. No speech. No plan. She plunged her arm into the grey water. It went cold up to her elbow. Bleach stung her cracked knuckles. She groped and found the phone with her fingertips and pulled it out, dripping. Stop, she said to the manager. Calm. She pressed the power button a few times and handed the phone dead back to the boy. Give him his space. She pointed at her own ear and then to him. He's deaf. The manager's voice got louder to cover the fact that a few customers had stopped. Go back to bakery, Lena. You are not his supervisor. His cheeks were flushed. Coffee on his breath. His hand hovered like he wanted to grab the phone again. No, she said. You don't get to take his stuff. Not like that. The boy looked at her, then at the wet phone. He tried to speak. His jaw worked. He sank down on the crate he had been using as a ladder. You want to make this a thing, the manager said. He glanced at the ceiling cameras. She nodded at the radios on their belts. Call whoever you need. I'm not moving. She looked at the boy, then at the sink, then at the wet floor sign they kept next to it. We can talk in back. I said, go back. Now? He reached for her arm, then stopped like he remembered training. You're on thin ice. Write me up then. She didn't raise her voice. The words tasted like metal. She could feel the heat of the ovens on her back even from here. She thought about the dough proofing without her. For a second, nobody moved. The produce mister clicked on again and laid a fine rain over the butter lettuce. A kid in a dinosaur hoodie giggled and stuck his fingers in the spray. The boy on the crate stared at his dead phone like it might come back if he held still enough. The front-end supervisor drifted over, headset crooked on her hair. What's going on? Insubordination, the manager said, and theft of time. He was breathing hard now, but his voice came out practiced. He kept glancing around, counting witnesses. He's deaf, Lena said. That phone is how he reads us. She made a writing motion with her hand. She fumbled in her apron for a pen and a receipt. She wrote, Are you hurt? And held it up. The boy shook his head. He took the pen and wrote, I'm okay. He underlined okay 3 times. His handwriting was careful and slow, like each letter had to be placed. You can't just insert yourself, the manager said. You leave the bakery, that's product loss. Then charge me, Lena said. She looked at the supervisor. I'll go to the office. He takes a break, right now. The supervisor looked at the manager, then at the kid, then back. The manager's jaw tightened. Office. Now, he said to Lena. To the boy, he said, Stay put. Don't move. His tone softened by a hair. We'll figure out your schedule later. You don't talk to him like he's not here, Lena said. He is here. She tapped the receipt. Break room. She wrote and pointed toward the back hall. The manager stepped into her path, but only for a second. Maybe it was the eyes on him. Maybe it was the red light on the camera. He dropped his hand. Fine. 10 minutes, he said. Then we're doing paperwork. Lena led the boy past the racks of bread and into the hallway. Her sleeve dripped onto the tile. The stainless doors of the oven showed her reflection, pale and tight-mouthed. She could hear the supervisor ask someone to cover bakery. That would cost her later. The office was small and overlit. A calendar with a lake photo. A jar of pens. A printer whining. The manager stood in the doorway while the supervisor scrolled a policy sheet. "You're suspended pending review," he said. And it sounded like a script. 2 days. Maybe longer. We'll see. Hand me your keys. He didn't look angry anymore. He looked tired. She slid her ring of keys across the desk. The metal clinked and went still. She felt like someone had cut a thread inside her. She nodded once. Okay. In the break room it was quiet except for the soda machine hum. A microwave clock blinked 12:0 like it had given up long ago. She found a towel and handed it to the boy. She poured him a paper cup of water. "Sit," she said. She kept her voice even and slow. He stared at the cup like it was a test, then took it and drank. The towel came up to his face. He dabbed at his phone, like drying a bird. She set her own phone on the table and opened the app her cousin showed her. Live captions scrolled as she spoke. "I'm Lena," she said. "You're safe. We're just sitting. Do you want food?" He leaned in, eyes on the screen. He watched the words form one by one. He nodded and then pointed to his stomach, then shook his head. No. He pulled the pen back toward him. "Okay now." "Fine," he wrote. "Sorry." She shook her head. "No sorry," she said. The words popped up. Wiggly. She pushed a plate of warm rolls toward him anyway. The smell of yeast sat heavy in the air. The edges brushed with butter, caught the light. He didn't eat. He held the pen again and wrote, "Phone translate." Boss took. He looked up, searching her face to see if the words worked. She nodded. He wrote, "It's how I hear." She nodded again and let her hand rest on the table so he could see she was not rushing him. The clock above the fridge ticked. Somewhere beyond the wall, a cart rattled. The store kept going. A folded letter slid out of his backpack when he fished for a charger. It fluttered to the floor. She bent to pick it up and saw the header. Request for reasonable accommodation. Under that, in ballpoint, is neat letters. "I am deaf. I use captions on my phone to communicate. I need to keep my phone with me for safety and communication at work." There was a copy of a bus schedule tucked in the same notebook. Circles around the last runs. There was an appointment card for an audiology clinic on Monday at 9:15. She handed the letter back to him without a word. He slid it into the pocket carefully. "You have someone?" she said into her phone. The text rolled out. "Parent? Social worker?" He watched the words, then pointed to the line on the form that said emergency contact and wrote, "Mom. Working." He hesitated. Then he added, "Shelter." He drew a small square around the word, like boxing it in. She nodded once. She didn't ask more. She reached into the vending machine with her quarter stash and bought a bottle of water and a pack of crackers. She set them by his elbow. The manager's face appeared in the window of the door and then moved on. He didn't come in. The supervisor came in once to tell her the suspension paperwork would arrive by email. "You can go home after you clock out," she said. She kept her face neutral, voice low. Lena wrote on another receipt and pushed it over. "If phone dead, use bakery. Ask for me." She drew a small cake to make him smile. He didn't quite, but his shoulders had dropped half an inch. He tapped his thumb on the tabletop twice. A small rhythm. When they stood up, she walked him to the time clock. She used her own phone to call a ride and paid for it without comment. Outside, the weather had turned. A thin rain began, just enough to halo the parking lot lights. By next week, a small whiteboard hung by the produce sink, a black marker tied to it with twine. Next to it, a laminated card with simple phrases. Break. Help? Where? How many? Thank you. Someone had taped a chart of basic signs. The photos were tiny, but you could make them out. At the morning huddle, someone read off a new line. Personal devices allowed for translation or medical needs. The manager cleared his throat while the words were said. He didn't look at anyone. The music in the store played a little lower that morning. The mister came on, and nobody flinched. On her first shift back, she wore a plain black hat instead of the lead's cap. Her hours were cut, and she knew it would hurt. But the ovens still warmed the air. She saw the kid in produce, sleeves pushed up, stacking apples in tight pyramids. A cheap lanyard pin on his vest said I sign. He had a new phone, budget model, plastic case. Someone had put a small sticker on it that said store communications, okay? He kept its screen up on the crate while he worked. He glanced at it now and then, checking for words. A shrink-wrapped stack of little notepads sat by each department phone now. In the customer service area, a jar of pens had appeared next to a sign that said, "Point to what you need." A barista from the cafe was practicing the sign for water between orders, a little clumsy but trying. The manager moved slower. He still wore the same blue shirt, the radio at his hip. He had started coming out earlier to break down pallets instead of saving it all for the last hour. Once, Lena watched him hesitate, then hold up a finger to the boy like, "Wait," and then write, "Need help unloading." On the whiteboard, nobody clapped. Nobody posted anything on a screen. The store kept doing its store things. Rolling carts, fruit under lights, the smell of rotisserie chickens after noon, the sound of price checks at 3. Lena didn't say much about any of it. She focused on dough, on the knife that always needed sharpening, on making her hands move when her head was loud. Every now and then she saw the boy look over. He raised his eyebrows to ask a question without words. She gave him a small nod, yes, go, finish, good. She watched him tap 2 fingers to his chin and push it forward. "Thank you. Clean, clear." He did it in her direction just once, not making a scene. The glass of the bakery case held the oven's glow. Outside, the rain had stopped. A sliver of afternoon sun laid a straight, thin stripe on the tile between produce and bakery. It looked like a line you could stand on when you needed to hold your place.